Hello, everyone. We are group live from LO2, and today we are going to introduce our mini project, which is blood pressure monitoring system. Our presentation will report the process of learning about the blood pressure monitor and designing a blood pressure monitoring system using microbit. These are three components of our presentation. First, I would like to introduce the learning process of learning a blood pressure monitor. So to learn blood pressure monitor, we first need to know what blood pressure is. When the heart pumps blood through the arteries, the blood puts pressure on the artery walls. This is known as a blood pressure. Generally, blood pressure can be divided into two types. One is systolic blood pressure, and it happens as the heart beats. And another one is diastolic blood pressure, which happens as the interval between two heartbeats. This is a traditional this is the working principle of a traditional blood pressure monitor. And as when the pulse appears, the sigmometer reading is the same as the systolic pressure. And when the pulse disappears, the sigmometer reading is the same as the diastolic pressure. Maybe you are pretty confused about what I said, and because it's very abstract. So let's look inside into the blood vessel. So the red part is the blood vessel, and the blue part is the inflated cuff. So when the cuff pressure is higher than blood pressure, so there is no pulse. And when the cuff's pressure is lower than the diastolic pressure, there is no pulse. So when the pulse appears, the pressure is the same as systolic pressure. And when the pulse disappears, the pressure is the same as the diastolic pressure. And how to create a blood pressure monitoring system on our own by using microbit to create an electronic one. So we need these three equipment. First is microbit, and another one is lablet. And we also need to use blood pressure sensing module. Let's welcome Liu Lingyue for explaining the working principle of our design.
Thanks for the explanation about the principle of blood pressure measurements from Zhang Zijie. Now I will introduce how to measure blood pressure automatically using microbit and lab kits. According to our professor and research online, we find the relationship between oscillation amplitude and the cuff pressure. The graph of the relationship is shown on the right. We know that the half of maximum oscillation amplitude is the amplitude at systolic pressure, and the 82% of maximum value is the amplitude at diastolic pressure. And then we can find systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. According to the principle, we designed a program to achieve this function using mu editor. We first create two lists to store the value of amplitude and blood pressure. Every time the value of amplitude is recorded, a value of blood pressure is recorded. Then we find the maximum of amplitude. And we need to find the location of the half of maximum value and 82% of maximum value in the amplitude list. Then we turn to the blood pressure list to find the value which represents systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure in a corresponding location. That's it.
In our design, we design many functions according to the needs of user. So we consider as we all know, the user of blood pressure monitor is elderly person. So they may have some problem with using the ordinary ones. So we considering these needs, we somehow update some function to our design. So the first problem is that what if old people do not understand how to tell if their pressure is high or low or normal according to the number showing in the diastolic pressure and systolic pressure. So we design a function to calculate the status of blood pressure. There are three status: high, normal, or low. And it will be shown just below DIA pressure, the dielectric pressure. So that in this way, they don't need to calculate, they don't need to tell the pressures, whether their pressure is high or no, according to the numbers of systolic pressure and diastolic pressure by themselves. And what if some nearsighted old people cannot see the OLED clearly, so they cannot see the word showing their blood pressure status, and also they cannot see the numbers of systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. So we design a function that we design a function to control the OLED, and when the status, which is calculated by the systolic pressure and diastolic pressure, if the result of the status is showing as high, the red light will be turned on to indicate, to tell the user that their blood pressure is very high. And for people who measure their blood pressure in their home, so they don't go to the hospital for measuring their blood pressure. So there is no one to help them. They need to operate the blood pressure monitoring on their own. So we design some instructions inside the blood pressure to instruct them using this. So we design a function that uses a speaker to speak out the word "start" when the blood pressure monitor starts, and also we will show the status of the blood pressure monitor. Like when the blood pressure monitor is operating and is measuring, we will print a measuring word in the OLED to indicate that the blood pressure monitor is working. And please be prepared and sit well and in the correct position so that the accuracy of the measurement will be accurate. So let's welcome Deng Zhaohen for explaining some expectation to the future.
Okay, thanks for Zhang Zijie. Let's begin the expectation to future. Due to the limitation of microbits, we can only implement the function above. Otherwise, the memory will not be enough to store more function. Originally, the device had the function about measuring the heartbeats. However, due to the memory limitation, it is pity that we have to cut out this part. As the computer become more and more powerful, they can compute and store more data. In that case, we can have more space to improve the monitoring system. In this lab, we updated the device again and again. From this example, we can see there is a high potential in science and engineering area that we can make some useful improvements. That's all. Thanks.
Next, we will show how the device works. First, we flash in the program. And once we press button A, the speaker will say start. And the red lights will switch on. And we pump in some gas. And then on the OLED screen, we can say it shows measuring. And after that, the device will lose gas, but the speed is a little bit slow, so we can do it manually. After 30 seconds of measuring, the red lights will be switched off, and the results will be shown on the screen. This time we can see the systolic blood pressure is 85 and the diastolic blood pressure is 58. And according to our codes, this blood pressure is regarded as low. Since the high blood pressure, if the blood pressure is regarded as high blood pressure, the lights will be on. But this time it will not on since the blood pressure is regarded as low pressure.